So today's session, I'm going to start with the forms part because last two sessions we were looking at the HTML and I thought of finish it off with the form handling, but I couldn't cover it. So we'll start with that. And the second half, I'm going to start with CSS style sheets handling. Right. I hope you already have worked on um, HTML forms at some point. At least you handle it, especially when you want to process some data with an application. Now, in the background, what you see here is a registration for a mailing list where usually you type your name and your email address and you submit it. And within the background, you will see the information that is name and email is passed into the web application and it will store in a database, and then finally you will receive a response in HTML. So to do that, we need HTML5 forms, the latest version. So there are two parts we want to see. That means usually the mailing list sign up. This is what you normally see. That is one part of HTML forms. And the second part is a web application script, or that means we have to have data processing, right, and providing appropriate response to when you submit your data, right? So first of all, in this particular example, what you see is there will be a visitor, and she's Sally. She enters her name and information. So she put her details and click on submit button, and then the browser will collect this data, right, and then it will send it to the web application. And web application should accept the information and it should process it. And for example, in this particular case, it will accept the name and the email, and then it should return a response, right? So it depends on that. Now, for example, this one, we are getting a very simple message saying thanks, and now you are in the mailing list, right? And then this is about the whole process. Now, to start with, usually the forms, we start with the form element, right? So you can see this as a form, as a kind of a container where you can have other elements. The form element is surrounded. For example, in this particular example, you will see form and slash form. Within that, we are going to get some other elements, right? So you will see here, we will have first name and last name. We are taking them as text boxes, right? So that's normally what we have in the form. Usually you will have action as well. In this particular case, we don't. We can have action, where action will indicate where will be the processing, right? So what? So data, we should send it to some kind of a script. That script we can put with the form. So usually that information is there, and the script file could be anything, like any dynamic programming language like PHP, ASP, Ruby on Rails, Java service pages, and even it could be even a Python. Right. And then I will come to that point later on. Use of get and post method depend on how you are going to handle it. We can decide on method attribute, So that method attribute specify how we should send the information to the server. Right, now let's look at the controls that we can have. There are different controls we can have, different elements where depend on what we want to do. So usually the most common one you will see in a form is a text input. Usually we can say input type text, define one line input file. So, and in this example, what you see here is you are getting first name and last name as input text boxes. Similarly, in some cases, we wanted to send some password information. Now, problem with the text box earlier is when you whatever type, it will show. In password, we know that we should not share. So therefore, we have to specify it as an input type password. So what happens when you type something? Now, it won't directly appear to the user. Right. Now, this is what we discussed earlier, where we have form attributes. Now, the first one, as I told you earlier, is the action, where whatever the entered data, how it process, in what page it should process. We normally have an action page. So in this particular case, we are assuming that whatever the data that we collect under the form will be sent to this page called actionpage.php. So the target attribute, if you want to have it, you can have some other two variables. For example, we can say that, okay, whenever you click it, it will load to the same page. For that case, you can use underscore self. But in case, let's say you want to have it in a separate web browser window, then we will say underscore black. So in here, for example, we have form. This is the place where the data is processed. And this is how it opens. It's open with a new browser tab. Now, I told you there's a method attribute. Now, method attribute is again important when you're processing your form. And what happens with method attribute is specify how information should be sent to the server. So as you can see here, there are two methods. We can use get and post, right? You can say in one form, this is the action page. The method is guest. Second one, you can say method is post. So the default method, that means sometimes even if you do not specify, is get method. So when you use get method, what happens, whatever the information that you share with the action page will be displayed in the browser. So for example, if you just send, let's say, the first name and the last name, that information is appear, if you're using get, appear like this, which is not a good practice if you are sending very sensitive information, for example, your username and password. So in that case, you should use post method. Right. Then the buttons. So usually we can have couple of buttons in a form. Most common buttons are the submit button. And in submit button, we specify saying, okay, input submit, type is submit, which will show you the submit button. And this is usually what you click. And whatever the values will be sent to the server. Right? So that is for submitting an information. So let's assume that you enter the appropriate values, and then that information collected within this will be sent into the server. The second button that you will normally find is a reset, which means whatever you type here, you can reset it so that it backs with empty. Again, very important. So you can either use submit as well as reset, which is two useful button elements when you work with the forms. Right. Then there are other buttons as well. Now, radio buttons, we can use input type radio. And usually we can say input type radio. For example, let's say we are going to create gender, and then value you can say, and which one is marked as the default one is we put with checked. So usually if you put checked, wherever you use it, which is to say that, okay, this is the default selection. So when you are going to get like gender information, so here is the assumption is we are going to get male as a default answer. So that's why we have checked here. And then there are, you can have, other values as well. Right, so that's about the radio buttons. Next, you can have check buttons. Now here in the radio button, you can have only one choice. You cannot have multiple choice, either male, female, or the other. Checkbox, on the other hand, we can set multiple values, right? So that means we can select more than one checkbox. You can click more than one box at a time, right? So the value you can keep, and we can decide how to handle them. So for example, here we have checkbox indicating you have a bike and a car. So some may select bike if you only have bike, and if you have a car, you may select this. A person who has both bike and a car should select both. So idea is you can have either 0 or more options in this with checkbox. Right. Then we can have date attributes. Now, getting a date is very interesting nowadays, and usually you will find the details, and you can easily get calendar input like this with today's implementations. So here, let's say you are going to get the birth date, and so you can say input date, birthday, and it types submit. But let's say we want some particular range of values, then you can use it like this. And you can specify max and min values, right? So those are like some of the things that you might consider when you're inputting a date here. Then you can also have emails. So HTML5 supports different type, input type email will give you opportunity to enter email. So that is also possible, right? And then you can also have numbers. So these are special cases, especially we didn't have this facility before version 5, which you can now specify what kind of input you are going to expect. So for example, quantity is commonly used in commercial applications where you specify the number of items and it will be integer. So for example, in this one, we will say min is 1, max is 5, indicating that the value we expect is quantity, which should be between 1 and 5. Okay. Another interesting one is the grouping. You remember when you have a large complex form, you better group these elements together so that users are very clear. Now user interface design, usually you have to think about this logical arrangement of data. So field set is one such element we could use to group related data in a form. So for example, when you ask him first name and last name, we can group them as a personal information. So you see here, we have additionally put field set, right? Then we are going to actually use them within this one. Right? So that's about the field list. So input attributes, what we can talk about in general, we can say the value attribute. So for example, if you want to have initial value in a text box, so let's say you are going to have an input box, data input, and you are going to expect person first name. And here we will say already specify some value John. So whenever you start looking at your form, you should see John. So that is a default value. Then read on the attributes. So that means, especially when you want to get the data and you want to display to the user, and let's say users are not supposed to change anything, you better put read only. Then the disabled attribute specifies that the input field is disabled. So we have a type text, name, first name, value John, and we say disable. Then we can also have size attributes. For example, when you want to type a name, you don't have very lengthy field for that. Usually, when you have like size attribute matters. So in size attributes, we can say how many characters you are expecting for this particular field. So again, very important, specify size. Then max length attribute. So we can say use this to maximum allowed length for input field. So for example, we can say, okay, first name, we limit it into 10. That's okay. Again, another example for drop down, again, like in earlier, you can make a selection of, in this particular case, we are trying to select a car, and we have 4 types of cars, Volvo, Saab, Fiat, and Audi, and then the users are supposed to select one of them. Right. Then there are other miscellaneous one, pre-selection option using selected attribute. For example, you can default selection on in this word Fiat. You can use it. And let's say the second one, let's say you have large number of cars here. And let's say you want to show only the first 3. We can simply say size 3. Right. The last one, select more than one value using multiple attributes. So you can say here we will say cars size, but it allows you to have multiple values. Right. Now, these are very short ones, but let's say you want to write a paragraph on something, or detailed report. The best thing, the element would be to use, text area element. So you can have text area element, and then we can decide number of rows and columns that you're expecting, and then you can use it to get the data that you want. Right. Okay, so when you talk about the button elements, here I will simply talk about how do you make it to clickable using on click. We can have JavaScript statement alert hello world, which with this execute whenever you click the button. Last one, data list element is a new addition to this. For example, data list elements, we can define pre-defined set of values. Let's say we are going to have an input list to get the browsers who are using. If you're using data set list element, which is a new addition to HTML5, so we can say data list ID and whatever the information that you want to give. And then you give different number of options to select. Right. I think we discuss the very basic elements in a form. So I want you to spend some time working on creating a simple form, right? And then we will switch to the other topic for today. That means style sheets, right? So let's start, and then we'll see how we could, create a form. Right. So what we could do now is let's work on a simple form, and then we will create the information that we want to keep in the form so that we all are comfortable with creating a form, right? So let me say I will share a screenshot of from the blog, right? And then let's try to recreate the form within maybe like half an hour time. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you a screenshot of the form that I want you to work on. And then let's share the code. So I have already shared exercise. And then I gave you some information on creating the form. Right. So let's start the work. We can work together, but within half an hour time, let's try to finish this off. Okay, so let me share my code window. And I'm going to use Notepad. and a browser. So I'm going to select Notepad and a browser. Right. So a screenshot I have already shared in the group. So I hope you have already received it. So let's start creating. Right, here are the text that we need. Just copy paste to you in case those who have difficulty in just typing it. So let me save as, I'm going to save it as my form exercise version 0 HTML. So I put it in this form so that original file is with me. Let's open it up and just see how it renders in my I have to I have closed it. So the desktop, I think I have taken it. So maybe I'll move it to my folder. Yes, I have mistakenly put it into the so let me now you can see both. So let's have the next version. Right. So I will go through the instruction we have asked. Let's do it together. The first one is in default, we have to create HTML document. So those things we have already discussed earlier, that what information we need, right? So let's start with those information to start our document. So let's start with the default coding first, and then let's put everything inside the form, right? So let me start with that. Let's put some code here. I will say start with the doc type. And I will specify it as HTML. And I will start with, right? So this is what I have. And then let's say we have head. And then you can have, whatever title. Right, let's say black news bistro. And then I will put that as the title. And then I will put head. Right, then we are going to have the body. Within the body, that this is my form. Right. And finally, I will have /home /body, and I will have /html. So let me save it, refresh it. Again, no change, because nothing we actually changed here. So this form, if you look at carefully how you should be putting, we are going to, it says this form should be sent it to blackgoosedistro.com pisa.php via post method. So let's update with that information first. So we know that the action should be, we have to post this to http://blackgoosebistro.com/pisa.php. And then we have to say method, we have to as post method. So now we ready with that one. Okay, so let's start with the first set. In our case, let's keep everything else. Let's focus on your information and then this first 4 elements. Let's put them as an unordered list. The reason is then it's easier for us to handle them. So /li. Simply this is just to, separate out this, but they put as just, unordered list. Now let's make it some text boxes, but remember that when you're putting values, you have to provide appropriate names, which then we can use them to process them, right? So that you have to be very careful when you're working on what information you are going to say. So let's start. So the name, we know we have to have a text box. So what we have to use is input type. It should be text for text box. And then we better use a name for that. We'll use a name as customer name. So let's see how it goes. Just refresh. Now you can see here. If you want to have a space in between, you better put some space here as well, so that you have some space in between. So let me copy paste this. So let me change the values. Now, couple of things, although I put text here, but if you want to use, email address, telephone numbers, the way you want, HTML actually supports different the types. For example, we can say telephone, right? We can say instead of here the text, if you're getting telephone, which actually, if you're using in a telephone, it actually prompt you only enter the number, so which is useful. And similarly, we can also have here the last one, we are getting email, so the type would be email as well. So in that way, you will see later on when you are working with your mobile friendly version, it will prompt automatically only the relevant data input. So let me save it. Yes, now that we have put the forms. Then let's move on the next one. So let's put the crust then. Again, like we did earlier, we can use it, right? And then maybe we can put them as option. So which crust? So when you want to put it, so let's put options then. So input block we have. So let's say of input type, we will say here also for the easiness, you can use list item, and then we can put them in a form. So in a way, we will discuss later on how to, handle them. Right now, make it radio buttons. So in this particular case, we can say, okay, input type. We can say it's a radio. We are going to select one of these as a crust. And we can provide a name for this. So basically, we are trying to use the crust here. So I can make it a crust. And then value, we have to put what value we are going to keep. So let's say classic. White is the value that I'm going to select it. Then we have this, let's say we will mark this as the default. So we will say checked. So let me refresh this. So you see now the selection is there, right? Simply I'm going to copy paste this to others as well. But I'm going to change the value here. Let's save it. Okay, I have put checked everywhere. I think I better use only for the first one and then remove from the other parts. So that was a mistake. So now you see checked value is only with the first one. So should be the default value, right? Okay, next the toppings. So the toppings, we will put them as check block so that they can use anything that they want, right? So let's put them as again unordered list and list item. So now you can see we have completed the remaining parts as well. Right. Now, the reason for selection of whether we are going to use a radio button or a checkbox, the reason is the radio button allows you to select only one, right? And then the check block, you can select multiple. So let's say something like gender, when you want to select, you better go for radio button because that will be only one selection. But when you want to make a variation, then you can select multiple values, then you go for like. So for example, here in the pizza, we have a crust. So crust could come from one of these four. But toppings, as much as you want, you can select. Right? So that's the reason why we have to select in between which one to use. Right. So let's put up the value. So I will say input type. So this time I'm going to say check box. Name I have to provide. Let's say I'm going to use T1 to indicate that it's a topping one. And then we will have a value, right? So let's say a red sauce. Similarly, I can copy paste from here so that I can just change it. Right, so we have done that. So checkbox, we have the values, we put it. So change the values accordingly so that you have unique values for each of these. So let me change some values. We'll have white source. So this is topping 3. Let's change the value. This is topping 4. Five. This is topping 6. 7. So let me refresh and see how it look like. Okay, now you can see, you can select whatever you want to have them. So that is checkbox here, but only one selection, remember. So the next one is, we can also have some delivery instructions. We have design your pizza and then, yeah. So after email, okay, so let's put delivery instruction here. I actually forgot it. So in the delivery instructions, what we want to put is some text area. So let me put that first. So delivery instructions. So text area, name, I will give you instructions. You can specify how many rows you allow and how many columns and so on. So let's say I'm going to have 4 rows and then 60 columns. And we can specify in case like what is the maximum number of lanes you can have. So let's say max length I will specify as 400. Right. And then you can also put up some information on placeholder. So this called placeholder. I will explain what this means. No more than 400 characters. Slash text area. So if you refresh this, now you can see here, we have put up everything for this. You can also make it as another list of this, because then you can have a list of list and you can make it, separate, look alike. Then we can also specify a number of pizzas, how many pizzas that you want. Again, you have different ways of putting values, or you can even put up input number. You can specify how much you can have. So in this case, we prefer to have a pull down menu, right? So pull down menu, let's put it as 1 to 6 pizzas. So in this particular case, we are going to have them as a pull down menu. So let's tap. So what we are going to have is, when you click a list of items. So in this particular case, the menu is for number of pizzas. So I'll go here. Now here, how many pizzas we have to put? So how many pizzas, the number that we want to have a pull down menu up to 6 pizzas. So let's create that, how many pizzas, and then let's put it here. We will say, okay, maybe select name, and we have to say, okay, number of pizzas. And then we can provide different options, right? Maybe I will get this here as well so that everything is in one place. So option will say valid. We can say, okay, we have 1. And the value we want to keep it is also and 1. So option values and slash option. So let me copy up to 6, it says. So let me change value 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's refresh. Okay, how many pizzas we can click? Yes, we can select how many we need. Right. Then what is left? We have the buttons. So yeah, let's create some buttons and then let's arrange finally and we can finish it off. So we have slash form here. We'll put up the buttons. First of all, we have to say, okay, so we'll take this one. We have to say, okay, input type, submit. Value is the one that we want to show the bring me pizza. Right, and then the next button is input type reset. That's all. You don't need this reset one. Okay, now let's save it, refresh it. Okay, so we have bring me pizza and reset. So when you click it, actually it will connect and we have not provided any value. That was the problem. But yeah. So you can try and fail and save. So let's complete this. And actually, if you put the values, you can see if you've done it correctly. Right. So let's, make it this looks good. So for example, I didn't put anything in the between so earlier. So maybe let's have some tagging H1. /h1. So it looks good. Yes. Or you can have h2 if you want. Let's say h2 maybe looks good. This is a little bit large. Maybe header 2 might work. Okay, that looks good. And then if you remember the grouping elements that we have discussed, we can group the first part of this up to delivery instruction, because that is usually your information. So to provide that, we talk about field sets. If you remember that, you can use it to cover up so that it easy and looks good as well, right? So for example, what we could give is field set. Now from here, your information, let's say here we have, right? We can say field set. And then we can have legend. That is your information slash. So now you can see it's actually grouped well. And finally, after the delivery instruction, maybe after this, you can say slash field set. So now what happens looks good, because you see that this set is as a separate set of, right? So it looks very clear to you as well. So there was a mistake here, placeholder spelling. Make sure you just check that here, because if you have done it correctly, it should say no more than 400 characters. So that was a mistake that I have not seen. Okay, looks good. Then let me put up other spec as well. We have PCI spec. Okay, PCI spec. So this is, I'm going to have another field set. So let's select field set earlier. So field set. And then we will also have legend. And that field set was right before here up to this point. Me refresh. Yes. Yes, it comes up to here. So I will give you highlight for design your dream piece as well. So let's give size of, let's say, h3 slash h3. So let me save. See, now it looks good. Okay, so piece spec, and we have separate out your information. If you want, you can actually separate out these ones as well. So let me put that one as well, class toppings, and I'm going to have another field set. So what I'm going to do, is, so let's put this as a field set, and then this will make a ledger. And then the crust, at the end of the crust, so I'll separate slash. So now see what will happen. Sorry, it should be field list. Field set. So I was wondering why I got error. Okay, so now this is separate out. So let's do the same for topping as well. Slash. So let's refresh it. Yes, we have toppings. Okay, I think we'll set it should be. Then number of pieces. We'll set. Okay. Now I think that's all what I wanted to discuss. We have discussed completely creating form. So let's just put some numbers, see whether they can properly map it. So let's submit it. Okay. Some information I'm missing here because the reason for that is the name tag should be matched with whatever the receiving in. I didn't follow exactly what naming conventions they have used. That may be the reason why we didn't get it. We can check with their processing side, but you can see some of them actually properly, set it up, and some information is already displayed with their thank you message. Remember that this is the external website where from our form we'll connect to the outside, and we were successful sending some information and some are not. It's mainly due to mismatch of the names that we have specified. But if you have matched 100% correctly, you will see exact one-to-one mapping, and all the information you submit from here should be displayed from the other side. So for example, let me give you a trick on this. Maybe what you could do is we can view the page source. I don't know whether it shows you this. Okay, no information is here for to look at. But let me check from the website whether we could find anything. Right? But otherwise, the problem what we had was the names that we have passed. Now, for example, the name was okay because we said custom address. So let's just put address and see whether this is working. I don't know whether this, because I put custom address. So let me go back. Just some and candy. See whether it's working. Yeah, so it's just address. So I'm assuming that these two are the same. So it should be telephone and email. So I will remove customer from here. So let me go back. Let's put some numbers. Yep. Exactly. So you can see here the problems that we had earlier was the naming conversion were not matched with the processing script. So you can see you can do that. And maybe if you have done it correctly, everything should become here, right? As we expect. So here is, okay, we have number. Maybe we'll put number here. Let's see. No, let's see. I'm trying to do some values. Okay, no, it's not the number we have. Okay, so I will keep it as for you to just try, and then I don't want to be perfect on this, but make sure that you completely understand the design of the forms and use of different various elements in available in HTML, not in just HTML. We try to make use of what is already available in the latest version. So now I think we can move on to the next topic. So I will give you 5 more minutes to complete, but if you have any questions, you can let me know in the same time, right? If you have any questions on what we did here, maybe. Right. So the next part of our discussion, we are going to use talk about the how to use style sheets, especially for the presentation. Now we talk about the how HTML is used for structuring your elements, and then with the HTML5, we discuss different ways of, you are improving the structure of your website or an application. So in this part, we are going to look at what we call cascading style sheets. The name CSS stands for cascading style sheets. How style sheets could be used to represent the document that we have built in HTML. So simply in simple words, we can say that, okay, we can use CSS to explain how it should be these different HTML elements, how they should be displayed on the screen, paper or in other media. Now, there are a lot of benefits of use of style sheets, especially with the type and the layout controls. So you can use anything that you want to do, right? And then it also needs some less work because you can make it your entire sites looks the same. You can make sure the consistency, and then it also more accessible sites, right? So more consistent, and then it's also available for sometimes for non-visual or mobile devices as well. Now, before you go there, just to have an idea about what CSS capable of, I would like to show you like one particular website of interest, and we used to show in whenever we teach CSS styles. That is called CSS Zen Garden. And then you can see in this particular website, which presents the capability of or the richness of CSS style, right? So the same content in this website can be easily customized with the other designs, which you can see in the other side. And you can notice how it is actually different, right? So let me click one of them. Same content, same structure, same HTML, but you see visually it's appealing and it's different. So let me use the second one. Yeah, this is the same thing again, right? But you will see the look and feel is completely has changed. This is not really updated right now, but you can see, although you don't see the changes, you can see how creativity of this particular work in different domains. Sorry, it should be the same thing, but style sheets give you a different style. Sorry. So as you can see, it's very powerful, and this can show you like what is um, easyness of a change of styles in HTML tags. So let's back to the note again. So few things, it's easy how it look like. We have to follow only 3 steps, especially when you want to create CSS style sheets. You first create the document, which we have covered in previous sessions. Second, you have to write a set of rules, which I will discuss right now. You write the rules how different HTML elements should look like. And how we use right, we have attribute value pairs, and these attribute value pairs could explain how each of these could be changed, right? So under that, we will discuss about different ideas that which we will come later on. Okay. Then the third one is you apply or attach your style sheets to your document, right? So this is how usually we are going to start with. Right. So let's discuss in detail like how this is done. The first thing that we need to understand is its syntax and different selectors. I will explain what this selectors means. Now, for example, if you take the H1, we know it's a header element, and that is a selector. And within curly bracket, we can define how we modify the selector, its appearance. For example, we will have attribute value pair, we have property and value pairs, you can say. So H1, we say, okay, color should be blue and the font size should be 12 pixels in values. So in that way, we can actually provide the rules in CSS, how this should be appeared. Similarly, the next example is you can see we have a P, that the paragraph, the color should be red and the alignment should be center. So this is the very simplest form of selecting it. Now, when you talk about the selectors, it could be the element could be the selector. We call element selector like H1, P, and so on. So we can simply put their name here. Then we have a special ID selector where you use hash mark and with ID name, and then we will use it for its particular property and values. Then you can have class selectors. Classes are defined with the dot in front. So for example, center class, we can define that texture alignments is always center and the color is white. And then we can also combine this class together with the element. Like for example, here, when you have paragraph with the class of center, so we can define how it should be look like. So remember that HTML can have like more than one class, right? So you can refer, two classes when you're defining elements. Right. These selectors could be grouped, right? The idea of this is now, for example, you can talk about 3 styles for H1, H2, and paragraph. Sorry about that. So all the 3, what you can notice here is text alignment, we make it to center and the color we set it to red. So the 3 elements, we are doing the same, so we can group them. So when you see text like this, what it means, for H1, H2, and P, we make it the text alignment as center, that means center line, and the color is red. Okay. Simple things within this CSS, we can have commas. Usually commas start with slash and star. And here also we have slash and star. So CSS comments we discussed. Then to insert CSS, we can talk about several ways. One, we can use the style sheet as a separate sheet. When you are going to select as a separate sheet, then usually we link within the header like this. Right now, for example, here is the example. Let's say we have including my style CSS into my document. And here is what I have within my style CSS. So I'm changing the body color into light blue, and then I'm changing the H1 to color navy, and I'm providing some margin with 20 pixels. Second one, we can specify style sheet as an internal style sheet. We can use style element and head, right? So within the head, within the style, we can include a set of CSS rule like this. So this is called internal style sheets. Last one, you can have the style attribute with any elements within the HTML itself. So whenever, for example, H1 is style and you can specify something like this, this is called inline style, where we will have all these property value within the element itself. So basically you are modifying the H1 in color in blue with the left margin of 30 pixels. Right. Now there's a problem that you need to face usually when we have multiple style sheets. Now, for example, let's say that you have same selector in different style sheets. Which one is going to adhere to, right? So we will assume that we have the following style within the external sheet, right? So each one is navy. So here we have my style, and then within that you have an internal style as well. So usually the practice is the last one will be applied. Last one will be applied. So remember, this is how it should look, goes on. When there's a more than one style specified in HTML element, this is how the priority order will be used. So the first one is inline style. That is, if something with within the element itself, that is the priority. Second could be external and internal, depend on the order that you have select. It will be applied the last one. Third will be the browser default. Right, now that we have got some basic understanding, let's move on some element properties. Okay, so let's look at how to specify colors, because we are going to focus a lot on colors, especially when you want to have look and feel. So color can be changed in multiple ways. For example, you can change the background color, and the property will be background dash color. And you can specify the color with the name, with the hash value, or with RGB. I'll come this later on again. The text color could be used to specify what text color you want to use. Then border colors, again, we can use. Color values, we can use either RGB format or we can use hash. You can actually use any internet source to get the names, but this one actually I have taken from W3 schools, color names. So you can see I told you there are many ways that you can represent the color. So color you can specify directly by the color name. So the names are given, some of the names are given here as well. Or you will have hex value, which represent RGB value. The first two values shows you the red color, then second two values green color. Last two will be the blue color. So this RGB value represent what red, green, and blue contribution for this particular color. Right. The next one. The CSS backgrounds, actually, I told you the background color you can change using the property background color, and the value you can select, one of the other ways that we have discussed earlier. The first one is how you may actually change background color. So in this particular case, background color is blue. Second one, you will have background image. So in that one, we specify an image to put it as a background. Okay, I think we should try this out just to see how this applies. Can you create a small HTML document where you have basic, text, and try to change the background color as well as putting an image? Shall we start? Let's take about like 5 minutes. We have about 5 minutes to finish for today's task. Let's complete this and then we'll finish for today. Let's start it. Right, I have done a couple of things here with the style sheets. So I mark it H1, color navy, the dark color, and the background color is light blue. Body, I have put an image from the existing image. And as you can see, the default is it's actually spread everywhere. That means it repeat both horizontally and vertically fill the background. So now with the CSS, you can have more control over. Now, for example, you can simply say background dash. We can say repeat, and we can say only repeat in X direction. So if that is the case, you can see it repeat only the X direction. So make a note of this. Okay, I think we just start the basics. So next week, we will continue from style sheets. And at the same time, I will share all the slides because I have not yet updated the LMS page. I will share everything within this week.